with the Alzheimer's Association of Washington State, and here to be our featured speaker and do our program today. So let's all give a warm welcome to Hazel Borden.
Hi, thanks everyone. How is everyone doing?
Good.
This virtual world has turned my life upside down, let me tell you. Normally I'd be out in person doing these, and now I get to be at home with my beautiful 5 kids who will run around behind me at any given point. So bear with me. But we're here today to talk a little bit about, just understanding Alzheimer's and what are some of the warning signs, because frequently what we do here in our communities is, oh, we're all going to get a touch of it. And I know that over recent days, there's actually been quite a few reports that have come out on the cold water therapies and how cold water swimming can help with Alzheimer's and dementia. I thought that was pretty neat because I myself am a cold water swimmer. But again, most people in our communities feel that at some point we're all going to get a touch of dementia, and that is actually not true. Okay, that's why there are so many individuals that live to be, centennials that never have any cognitive issues. So I guess for those of you that are still, that I can see on the screen, do many of you know someone, whether it's a family member or a coworker or a neighbor? Could you just kind of give me a nod? I'm just curious. Because I feel like many of us have, had some type of connection to this disease. And it's really sad because in essence, our loved ones leave us before they actually leave us. And what we need to remember through all of this is that that's a disease. Okay, it's a neurodegenerative disease. And the person that they've always been, they still are that person inside. So if your loved one, didn't like crowds, they're not going to like crowds, even though they can't communicate that with you anymore. If, they didn't like cold weather, they probably don't like cold weather still. So again, it's about learning, how to best serve our loved ones and how to prepare for something like this. Because the truth is that there's a huge stigma on this disease. I mean, culturally, speaking, coming from a Mexican family, you just don't talk about it. You just take care of mom, or mom's going crazy or dad's going crazy. And that in fact is not the truth. Again, it's a neurodegenerative disease. So with that, let me start sharing my screen. And I am hoping that the volume comes on right from the get-go, but I can't guarantee that. So if for some reason you can't hear it, just let me know. All right. So how many of you all knew that we have a local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association in Washington State? If you didn't, now you do. So we actually serve the entire state of Washington. We have support groups. We've got virtual online education that's happening now. We have conferences. One thing that I really like to stress from the very beginning, and I will stress it again at the end, is our 1-800 helpline. Our 1-800 helpline number is 1-800-272-3900. I will type that into the chat when we're done, or if somebody doesn't, wants to type that in, that'd be great too. But basically that helpline is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it will connect you with a master's level social worker who can help answer your questions or give you suggestions on how to better care for your loved one through the changes that they are experiencing. Okay, so where are we at? And it's been a while since I've presented this presentation, so bear with me. All right, so what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Because again, a lot of people think that Alzheimer's is one disease and that dementia is another, when in fact, there is no difference. So let's talk a little bit more about normal aging versus dementia.
As we get older, cognitive problems become more noticeable for almost everybody. And it can vary from person to person. Typically with age, people have trouble coming up with the word they want right when they want it. They have trouble remembering names and they don't think quite as quickly. What's more concerning, or what might be the beginning of a memory problem, is people have a lot of trouble coming up with words or names, and it's happening more frequently, and the words or names don't necessarily come to them later. And then they start misplacing things. but not just once in a while, because we all misplace things, but more often. And it begins to interfere day to day. That should be a warning sign for people that this might be the beginning of a memory problem.
Okay, one way I like to kind of explain that to individuals is, taking a phone and saying, what is this versus where is this? The where is this, that happens to most of us at some given point or another, but the what is this is where there are major cognitive changes happening. So let's, Alzheimer's and dementia, what is the actual difference? Here we go.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow and the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
Okay, so like that explained, there is no difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. Dementia is that overall umbrella term, Alzheimer's being that leading cause of it. And then next to it, there's over 70 different plus classified types of dementias, not including, some that start to fall into the mixed dementias, some that can be the traumatic brain injury dementias. So overall, you're looking more at like 400 different types of dementias, but at least 70 some that are closely related to the Alzheimer's side of dementia. Okay, so what are the risk factors? Because as we get older, we sometimes say you start to kind of look at these different warning signs, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me. But don't worry, because it's usually not Alzheimer's disease. But let's talk a little bit about those risk factors and what they are.
Alzheimer's disease is marked by specific brain changes that result in the clinical changes in individual experiences. That is, changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. And ultimately, Alzheimer's is fatal. The exact cause for these changes is unknown, but there are some hints as to what may contribute to an individual's risk. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's. And when we look at populations of people, we see an increased risk over the age of 65. However, Alzheimer's is not normal aging. Family history is also a known risk factor. Research has shown that those who have a parent or a sibling with Alzheimer's are more likely to develop the disease, and that risk increases if more than one family member has Alzheimer's. When we talk about the genes involved in Alzheimer's, there are two categories that could potentially be involved: risk genes and deterministic genes. Risk genes increases an individual's risk for developing the disease, but does not guarantee that they will develop Alzheimer's. Deterministic genes, which are rare for Alzheimer's, guarantee that the person will develop the disease.
Okay, so remember, the risk gene just increases your risk of getting the disease. It does not mean you're going to get the disease, which is why there's so much research going into that healthy living for the brain and the body, and what does that look like. And so that's actually a whole other presentation that we do offer as part of our webinar educational series that we do. But again, it comes down to physical exercise, diet and nutrition, social engagement, cognitive stimulation. So those four key pillars are what have been shown to have a direct impact on how the brain ages. And so just so that with risk, individuals that are of Hispanic descent are about 1.5 times more likely to get this disease and other dementias than that of their counterparts. And African Americans are about twice as likely to develop this disease. Now, they also say that about 2/3 of Americans that are living with this disease are women. And I remember seeing a study years ago when I first came on board with the association. Must have been about 6 years ago now. There was this research that came out about women having high levels of stress at middle age, and how if they don't effectively learn to manage that stress, that's what increases their risk of getting this disease. And when you think about it, that middle age time frame is when we really are busy working, raising a family, kids. It's a very stressful time in life. Okay, so now let's test your knowledge. All right, let's see how interactive we can be in this virtual world. I know that we've got the little reactions at the bottom of the screen. So if you want to give me a thumbs up for true or a thumbs down for false, we'll kind of see. Is Alzheimer's a normal part of aging, true or false? All right, I got a couple false. Here we go. Alzheimer's is a brain disease that causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. And again, it is not a part of normal aging. Okay, so now the next question is, what is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's disease? Is it, you can show me either with your hand with 1, 2, or 3. Is it genetics, family history, or age? Family history, I see 2. I see 3, I see another 2, another 3. Okay, let's go with family history. All right. Then I think I saw a couple people say age. There we go. All right, so age is the greatest risk factor for this disease. So what are the warning signs? Let's go ahead and touch on these. We actually offer also another presentation as part of our educational webinar series on these 10 warning signs that go into them a little more in depth and give you more examples and just really kind of clarify like what is the difference and what should I be worried about. But the first warning sign is going to be that memory loss that disrupts daily life. And so a good example of this is you go to work and you sit down in front of the computer and maybe you no longer remember what the computer does. And it sounds so like, oh my gosh, that would never happen. But think about how many individuals were unable to retire, back in, what was it, the early 2000s or something like that, or 2007, 2008 or something like that. So again, it's one of those where individuals may have some of these changes happening and they may be showing signs and symptoms in the workforce, but they're actually not thought of as being a disease. They're thought of as somebody underperforming. So again, it's the memory loss that disrupts the daily life. The second warning sign is going to be challenges in planning or solving problems. So this basically comes down to being able to follow, a pattern to problem solve when something happens in your daily routine. That starts to become more difficult. The third warning sign is difficulty completing familiar tasks. Similar to number 1, another example of something like this would be there was a caregiver who, her husband had younger onset and they had just found out. And she shared that the reason they got tested was because they were changing out the bed sheets. Just think about it, just a fitted bed sheet, in their room. And her husband no longer knew how to put the fitted sheet over the bed. And she said he just stood there looking really confused. And she's like, honey, just tuck it in. And he just said, I can't. So again, that's one of those things that, sometimes people take for granted. It's such a simple, daily, familiar task that individuals may not be able to execute it anymore. The fourth warning sign is going to be confusion with time or place. Now, this isn't just, about the time of day, because that happens to all of us. Oh, gosh, it feels like 8 o'clock, but it's 5:30 these days. That comes more in terms of, individuals thinking it's 1940 or, they're back in 1960 or whatever time frame in life they are living. Because with this disease, people tend to regress back in time. And so they may get confused with the time or the place where they're living. They may be living back, in their Civil War days, or during the World War II days, or they may be living in the time frame where they had young children, or sometime in their middle life span age. So again, it's that confusion with time or place. They can also get confused with seasons, and that can really be a challenge, especially with apparel and clothing. And if they are wanderers, and they might get out and walk around and get lost. And if they're not properly dressed for the right season, that can be very dangerous for them as well. Okay, the fifth warning sign is trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. This one is one I really like to elaborate on, because what happens is families go to the doctor's office and they're given this diagnosis, but then they're not given much more after that. So a lot of families don't know, what does this mean, what to expect, and what are some of the changes, right, that are happening. Well, for individuals with this disease, they don't see the color black and white the way that we do. Okay. For them, the color black is like a big hole. So just think about it. If the concrete, if the asphalt is wet because it's been raining and they're getting out of their vehicle, and to them, it may feel like they're just stepping into like a big hole. So again, they don't see the colors black and white the way that we do. The color white to them is like a vast open space. Now think about that really closely. Okay. What color are the showers and what color are tubs normally? They're white. And many times individuals with this disease get very scared when it comes time to bathe, to either take a shower or a bath. And many times it's because they don't know where it starts and where it ends. So again, this is where our 1-800 helpline number can really listen to families and listen to what are some of those daily challenges that are happening. And they can help offer suggestions for helping, navigate that stage of the disease. Okay, the sixth warning sign is problems with words and speaking or writing. Many times it'll take individuals a lot longer to express their message. And at that, when they do express a message, the words just aren't coming out right. And so what they think is making sense is really just gibberish on the other end. And I'm talking about specifically about maybe like an email. They may be thinking they're typing one thing, but it's just not coming out right. Sometimes you even hear people say, I see the word, but I don't know the word. That's a common way that sometimes people describe it as well. Okay, the seventh warning sign is misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. This happens all the time to me, and I joke around about it, but it actually just happened to me. Like last week, I lost my debit card again. I lose it, I kid you not, like 4 or 5 times a year. It's a bad problem. But the difference there is I can usually retrace my steps. I can say I went to go get gas. I stopped at the gas station. I went and I pulled some money from the bank. And so I can do that. For somebody with this disease, they can no longer do that. They don't know what they had just done. Okay. The eighth warning sign is decreased or poor judgment. Again, this can, an example of this can be pinned to not making a good judgment in the attire that they're wearing when they, again, are setting out to go for a walk. Or if a bill collector calls or a telemarketer calls and they're trying to get money and they just they can't follow and make that proper decision, because it does affect, that frontal temporal part of the brain as well. So again, it becomes more difficult to make those executive decisions. Now, they do say that this disease travels in a very particular pattern. It starts at the left temporal lobe and it travels around the brain in a clockwise pattern. All right, so the ninth warning sign is withdrawing from work and social activities. This one's important to this is where you can keep track of your friends and have some accountability, because what happens is individuals, as they start to see all these changes, think about it. It becomes hard to follow a conversation. It becomes hard to, know what individuals are talking about. You kind of zone in and out and can't really follow on that conversation. So many times people are going to either seclude themselves or isolate themselves and just maybe retract a little from being their regular social selves. Because one, they might be afraid that people are going to judge them, or two, it just becomes it might give them anxiety to even try to partake in something like a conversation. So they will tend to withdraw from social activities. And then the last warning sign is just changes in mood and personality at large. But think about it. if you got to your computer one morning and you didn't know how it worked, and if you couldn't even remember how to cut your food, and if you couldn't find the right words, wouldn't you get frustrated? Wouldn't you get angry at some point? I mean, it's like all these changes are happening. So of course, individuals are going to have those changes in mood and personality as the disease progresses. So again, that can be a warning sign in itself. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap up with remembering that it's possible for individuals to have one or multiple of these signs in varying degrees. So no two journeys are ever the same. Okay, so just because one person has this doesn't mean the other person's going to exhibit the same types of signs and symptoms. Also know that it's not necessary to experience every single one of these in order for there to be some concern. If they are experiencing one of these and it, you know it's cause for concern, then get it addressed. Talk to a physician. If you notice that one or more of these signs in yourself or somebody else, it is important to seek out a physician to get a proper diagnosis. And don't be afraid to talk about it, because I feel like what's the statistic says that less than 70, let's just say that most people that have cancer are given their diagnoses. Most people that have Alzheimer's disease never get their diagnoses. Like, this is a hard fact. I wish I had the number in front of me, but I forgot it. That's kind of funny, right? The Alzheimer's girl forgot the fact. All right. So anyway, I see somebody laughing at me. So yes, most people with this particular disease will never get their condition diagnosed because many times the physicians have admitted to, I feel bad. I feel bad telling my patient and their family that, they have this death sentence. And so again, don't be afraid to talk about it, because the more prepared that you can be as the disease progresses, the better the transition is going to be for you and your family. So that's why we make a really big push for that early detection and diagnoses in our communities.
There are a number of benefits in early detection of Alzheimer's. For one thing, a person is able to have a voice in what happens next. They can make plans. They can live life more on their own terms. They can also make plans for the future, financial plans, care plans. They can let people know what they want, which can be a real gift later on. It also allows time for families to make plans and to make decisions about who can do what and figure out care and those kinds of issues. Also, the treatments that are available for Alzheimer's don't cure Alzheimer's. They don't slow down the disease, but they do help with symptoms. And it seems as though they tend to work better the earlier a person is able to use those. So that can help too. Some people are interested in clinical trials. Clinical trials allow people to have access to treatments that aren't available yet. And for some people, that can be a really important thing to pursue.
You got muted, Hazel.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I was just asking, can somebody unmute themselves and please tell me how much time I have, but I needed to unmute myself first. I'm having all kinds of crazy issues today.
Hazel, we have about 15 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and keep talking unless are there any questions so far in regards to the warning signs or, that early diagnosis piece or anything yet? Anybody have any questions?
I have a question for you.
Yourself.
Hazel,
Yeah.
I have a question for you. You're doing a great job. I really appreciate it. It's a
Good.
personal note. What's associated when you walk from one room to the other and you forget what you came in for momentarily or forever?
Yeah.
Is that any part of this symptomatology that I need to start worrying about?
Right. And that's a really great
I'm asking
question.
for Bucky, of course.
That's funny because I always say don't diagnose your neighbor as I'm talking or before I start talking, because somebody's always going to point the finger at somebody else. But, to be very honest with you, the whole, I walk into a room and I forget why I'm there, that happens to me even. I'm 40. It's one of those. I want to say that the key factor in determining whether it's something for you to worry about or not is, can you retrace your steps? Once you get to that room, can you say, oh, I was just in the kitchen, and then you get to the kitchen and you're like, okay, I was cooking something, and then you kind of start mimicking it again, and then maybe it re-sparks what you were, going to do. Yeah, that's the difference. It's when you can't retrace and know how you got there that it should be a bit of more of a concern.
Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome.
I feel better.
Well, yeah, good. I'm glad that kind of gave you a little bit of a right. All right, I have another question. I think that's David. Go ahead, David.
Physical changes. I'm thinking of decreased blood flow to your brain and that kind of stuff. Can that be mistaken for Alzheimer's or?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, remember there's several types of dementias, and one of them can be a vascular dementia. And so, if you have that trouble with the blood flow getting to your brain, so now one interesting fact here is that every time your heart beats, 25% of your blood goes to your brain. And now think about it. If 25% of your blood is going to your brain with every heartbeat, your blood carries oxygen. So you're feeding your brain that oxygen. That's why exercise is so good for brain health. But if you are having some type of memory issues and you've got bad blood circulation, again, this is why it's really important to get a good diagnosis, that your physician isn't automatically going to say, oh, it's Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's disease is not going to have the same type of treatment as somebody with vascular dementia, as somebody with Parkinson's, or somebody with frontal temporal dementia. So I do suggest if you feel like, that's the thing, is not enough of our physicians in our communities have that in-depth training on Alzheimer's and dementias. They're general practice, general practitioners or whatnot. And so that's why you need to go to a neurologist and get a good diagnosis. Hey, this is the problem. This is how I'm feeling. I know I've got this underlying condition of bad blood circulation. Could this be Alzheimer's, or is it truly just bad blood vascular issues? So I hope that helps a little. Good.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. All right. Does anybody else have any questions before I talk about all the amazing and wonderful resources that we have for our people in our
question,
community?
if I may.
Yeah.
You mentioned like whites and blacks and colors are hard to see or process. Are there like safe colors, like comforting colors that you would want to use for someone that has maybe dementia near you?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I've never heard that question before. And like I said, I've been doing this 6 years. Wow. So I know what I can say is that that's why we suggest on like the color white in the shower or the bathtub to put different like colored sticky mats on the walls so that it helps break up the color for them. Similar for the toilet. Oftentimes, this is a real problem with men. I mean, not just to, have an excuse. You don't have an excuse. Okay. Got that. But apparently as the disease progresses, they can no longer see where the toilet is because it's white. And usually the floors around it might be white. And so they suggest putting a little colored tablet in there to color the water so it breaks up the color of the toilet. So as far as comforting colors, I know the color red is typically used to help trigger like a reminder that, hey, there's food here in front of me. Especially when you have like mashed potatoes or pasta or butter noodles or something that's a white color base on a white plate, they won't be able to see that. And so they'll need a cue of, oh, my food's in front of me. As far as other colors are concerned, I'd encourage you to reach out to that helpline, with our master's level social workers that are specifically trained in this, because they would know probably a little bit more about colors. I do know that weighted blankets help people with this disease quite a bit if they're restless or if they're agitated or if they tend to sundown. So similar to, somebody with autism, it's soothing and comforting. So, and when you think about it, that all revolves around touch, which we can't do in a world right now. But anyhow, so yes, I hope that helped answer that
Thank you.
question a
Yeah,
little bit.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, well, let me go ahead and wrap up with talking a little bit about the great resources that we have for you all here at the Alzheimer's Association. And I hope that you can take some of this information back and, share it with some of your neighbors or coworkers or friends, because I know that's how we typically get exposed to this disease. And don't forget, we're coming up on the holidays, and this is where families, typically get together and start talking about, oh, I've seen this, or I've experienced this, or mom might be having issues. So again, remember, we're here for you 24 hours a day with our helpline.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center when I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. There's been a couple of nights, 2 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did, was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
I love hearing how the helpline is a true resource for even people with the disease, not just for the caregivers, but also for people with the disease, because you've got somebody on the other end of the line that understands. Because remember, a lot of these individuals tend to retract from being socially engaged. You can also visit us online at alz.org.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, there I was trying to find out more about what was Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, how long has this been around, how many people are affected by this, where can I go for resources, where can I go for help, what do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found the support line that's 24 hours a day. And there I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening in the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
And like I said earlier, we are across the country. We're in all of our communities across the country, nationwide.
Since I've been diagnosed with dementia, the one place that I know I can go to for assistance and help and support is to the Alzheimer's Association. There are people there that I know by name that I can contact if I'm having a difficult time, or if I'm struggling to find some resource, that they will provide that to me.
So again, our helpline is at 1-800-272-3900. And this is where I'm going to talk really quick about our volunteer program that we have. We have now transitioned into really trying to recruit some volunteers to help us with these presentations in our communities, virtually, online. So if you're interested in that, I would urge you to reach out to us, or send me an email directly and let me know. We need help in reaching more individuals so that more individuals can understand the importance of early diagnoses and the warning signs. We also ask you to join us in our efforts for advocacy. I know that with everything going on right now, politically speaking, some of you may have heard there may be plans of losing Social Security a little earlier than later, and that long-term care plan that didn't pass. I mean, the decisions that we make today are going to affect us as seniors as we age. And so all of this is so important. So, you can play a role in being an advocate for this disease. And like they mentioned earlier, we do have a trial match program that will offer individuals the opportunity to maybe even be a part of finding the cure. And if not, they're going to get that best treatment possible. And so we're also on an annual basis, we have our walks to end Alzheimer's. Now, these were a little different this year in the sense that they were virtual, but nevertheless, they still happened. It's our biggest fundraiser. This is where I'm going to be very shameless and have an ask and say, if anyone is interested in being a chair member and, maybe starting a walk team. I know you all support many great causes in your community. But this is where we really need help in raising our voices for our seniors and our caregivers in our communities. I mean, think about the fact that with this COVID that has just hit and impacted the world, it's our seniors that have been impacted the most. They're the ones that can't see family members. Right now, they're living in residential communities, many of them. They're not allowed to hug or touch or, you know, even come face to face with their loved ones many times. And if someone in the facility, you know, tests positive, they get completely shut down. And so this is affecting a lot of seniors on a very personal level, making them feel even more isolated than they previously were. So again, you know, we're recruiting for team leads, for chairs for our walk. I know we're just coming into the holidays. Our walk season typically starts in August and ends in late October, early November. So we'll have a whole year to plan to make this one of our best Walk to End Alzheimer's seasons ever, because 2021 is going to be amazing, right? Can I just get like a woohoo for that? All right. So with that, I leave you today, and I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to come on here and to talk to all of you. And I would hope I can maybe take one or two more questions if anyone does have another one that came up.
Hazel, I have a question.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in India. So one of the things is like some of this education and like opportunities, like, I mean, some of these like we didn't know, but as you kept talking and as I kept reading, like my husband actually came in, his uncle, I think, had Alzheimer's. And so these resources, I wish like we had them at that time.
Yeah.
So does it impact youngsters? Like, I mean, or is there a
That's a really great question. You know, the individuals age 65 and older, well, I guess it's more 70 and older, have a more increased risk of getting this disease. It has been known to affect younger generations at they call that early onset. And so with early onset, individuals will start showing some of the signs and symptoms mid 40s, early 50s. They do say that individuals that have young onset will tend to progress through the disease a lot faster than somebody who gets it at elder age. So it is very rare though, because that would be more of a deterministic gene versus a risk gene. Because remember, the risk gene just increases your risk. To have a deterministic gene is very rare. And so the younger onset cases are a lot more rare than normal Alzheimer's disease. So, but it can happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hazel.
Yeah, thank you all.
We run out of time, unfortunately, but if you want to hang around and answer any more questions, I'm going to close the meeting, and you're welcome to do so. So,
can I make a couple announcements, Bryce?
Sure. Yep.
Jim Kelly wanted me to announce a couple things with regards to the blood draw. There were 36 units of blood that were donated. That'll save 108 lives. We had donors from the Arlington, Marysville Sunrise Club, a Rotaractor. We had some former Rotarians that came in and